I went to China for a couple days for a quick vacation, and the car scene was not exactly what I thought it would be. In fact, there's something really odd about driving in China, and it's not good. Hi, I'm Eric, your humble international car observer, and you know, I've driven cars and rented them in all kinds of different countries, including the UK, and I thought I would do the same thing in China. So this is me trying to reserve a car in China. Step 1, apply for a Chinese provisional driver's license. Okay. Step 2, get a national driving license translated into Chinese and notarized. A passport, visa, and hotel registration. Well, I've got those 3. Get a certificate of temporary registration of a foreigner, certified at a police station? Really? And get a medical check. Because... Alright, so you can see that I wasn't actually able to rent a car, but I was there and I had some really interesting observations about what's going on in China and the roads and the drivers. So in the USA and Europe, I can basically count the number of manufacturers on 1, maybe 2 hands. In China, I need like a lot more hands, actually. I did some research and it looks like there's upwards of 30 different car manufacturers in China operating today. Maybe I've bitten off just a little bit more than I can chew. Okay, in this shot alone, we've got a Wuling, a JAC, and a JAC. Maybe somebody should talk to these guys about branding because it looks not like the same logo to me. I don't know, maybe I'm just blind? And another thing, all the cars seemed pretty new to me. So in the US, used car sales typically well outpace new car sales, often about 2 to 1. In China, however, it's flipped on its head. There's about 2 times the number of new car sales to used. And I noticed that there's virtually no old cars on the street, and so I looked it up because, hey, I can Google stuff, and there's 2 reasons. 1, apparently it used to be illegal to keep your car for more than, I think, 12 years. And 2, the used car prices are nearly as high as buying a new car. So I had trouble verifying this information because I'm sitting here back in the US using Google, and it doesn't seem like there's a ton of reliable information on this. So if you're from China or you've got some knowledge, just hit me up in the comments below. Feel free to correct me on these major points. Car culture in China is really, really new. You don't go back to the 70s and 80s where people grew up and held all these classic cars. That just isn't a thing. The government started promoting car ownership in the mid-90s, and it seems like only around in the year 2000 did cars, or even later, become really popular and become more affordable to the rising middle class. So because car culture is really in its infant stages, it leads me to show you this. They've got these dedicated lanes separated by medians for scooters and bicycles and pedestrians. And one thing I didn't notice, and I was only in 2 major cities, is motorcycles. I didn't see any gas-powered motorcycles at all except for the police. So look at these scooters again. What do you hear? Sounds like an ASMR video, right? There's no sound. All these scooters are electric. They're called e-bikes, and they're unbelievably popular in China right now. According to Bloomberg, about 35 million were sold last year, and there's about 200 million of these e-bikes on the road, and they're largely or almost completely unregulated. They're really inexpensive to buy. My local friends there tell me that the prices go from about 150 to about 350 US dollars. I don't know how cheap that is compared to a normal Chinese person's salary, but there's a lot of them on the road, so they can't be that unaffordable. And because they're unregulated and the drivers are all new, it is absolute mayhem. You don't need a license, you don't need a helmet, and you definitely don't need any talent. In the bicycle lanes, you've got these e-bikes going mostly in the same direction, but you got some people that don't really think that's necessary. You've got pedestrians in the crosswalk, you've got buses, you've got cars, and they're all going in different directions, and it kind of looks like an experiment from the Hadron Super Collider in Geneva. That's a science joke. I took a Didi, which is basically a Chinese Uber. Some of them weren't too bad, the drivers were fairly conscientious, but on the way back to the train station on an early morning, I wish I had footage of this, we were in a tunnel and the driver went about halfway into the next lane, he got honked at, I think he almost fell asleep. Another time he veered almost into oncoming traffic. I mean, it's probably the worst, most terrifying taxi ride I've been in my life. Another thing I noticed is that there's absolutely, virtually no modifications to the cars at all. I looked it up as best as I could, and it seems like modifications are completely illegal, you cannot even change the paint color on your car. So I get that the government is obviously trying to control pollution. It's a big deal. I think they're encouraging the e-bikes. I think they're discouraging any modifications of the engine because pollution is such a big deal in Beijing and Shanghai and other big cities. But with no regulation of e-bikes and very inexperienced drivers, I came across this at an intersection. I don't know what to say. I wasn't there, but I just have a problem with this. You've got 3 cops standing around a guy who looks to be clearly injured, and they're not doing bupkis. It was a little disturbing, and perhaps it's not such a bad thing that I wasn't able to drive in China, because I don't really think I wanted to deal with the traffic and all the insanity. And you know what else is insane is my LS2 swap Mercedes SLK. I'm gonna put a link to it at the end of the video right here. If you wanna chat me up, Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And remember, hey, if you like this, hit subscribe and show my channel a little support. I'll see you in the next one.